guys, you are in for a treat.
All three of you.
Kaytin is the best person that I ever hired. Trying to take credit for everything that you have ever done. I
All
found
because of
her.
Cameron.
She's only awesome because of me. No. She
I love
is
it.
like, how do I want to describe you, Kaytin? You're good at everything that you do, and you make everything better. And
Sure.
you have done everything about leads. So like, if you're like, I wish I could talk to more people, just being close to Kaytin will probably get you leads.
Yeah.
They just like fall out of.
I just have an abundance of leads and I need agents to call them. So just talk to me anytime.
More for problems.
Yeah.
Generate better than you can find people to work.
Yep.
So pay
Yeah.
attention,
Good
ask her a
Yeah.
ton of questions because she is sharp and knows her stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think more people are coming, by the way.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Well, Alex, we're a one-on-one. Yeah, no, so I'm the director of lead gen for Red Sign. And so I was telling him, I was like, I really am just, my job is just to generate leads and have our inside sales division follow up and set pre-qualified appointments for our agents. Because an average conversion for an internet lead is like 12 to 18 months. So the money's in the follow-up, right? Because you have a lot of agents who call the lead once or twice, they don't get a hold of them, then they neglect that lead. And so for us, it's like you need someone consistently calling, systematically touching, being in front of them, brand awareness. So that's kind of my job. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is capturing more leads. And because we have such a small class, I really want this to be, I hate going to classes and walking away and being like, that was the biggest waste of 2 hours of my life, because I'm very like high moving, fast paced person. So if you guys are like asking specific questions or have anything, like just stop me. And like, I want this to be like pertinent to your business or your future business or whatever that looks like. So just tell me to stop talking if you're like, I have questions about this, because really this class is for you guys and what you can get out of it. So today we're going to talk about like systems. Like I think being part of the Keller Williams network, like Gary Keller is so key on like systems is where you make your money, right? And I think that's where a lot of new agents fail, is because they come in and they're like, I'm posting on social media and I got all these like friends and family, but like I'm not systematic with my nurtures and my follow-ups and staying consistent. So systems is super important. And I think that's what has caused me to be successful in the position that I'm in, because I've learned how to systematically stay in front of people. Prospecting versus marketing, those are obviously two very different things. So we're going to talk about what those look like for you. Gold mines of referrals, sources, capturing every leads, and then ahas, recaps, all that fun jazz. So do you guys have any specific lead generation questions that you're like, this is on the top of my mind, I really want to know? Okay, so lead generation is like, it really is. So like what Carl and Todd did at BYU, like it's just their way of like getting in front of people and creating new relationships. So it's just all about you meeting new people. So you have like your SOI, which is essentially like your people, like your friends, your family members, your people that are like, I'm going to do business with you no matter what. Lead generation is like people you haven't met that you're going and putting yourself out in front of them. So then that they hopefully become to like know, like, and trust you and use you as an agent. So think of lead generation as like haven't met potential clients. So how do you get in front of more and more people? Because the average conversion of a Met database, so if you have 200 people, Gary Keller says like an awesome database, like you're doing a killer job, is you're converting 10%. So then you're only converting what, 20 deals, right? If you have 100 people, you're converting 10 deals. So how do you go grow your database so you can convert more people? So that's where we'll just go over. So any questions specifically? That was a great one. Any other lead generation questions?
So you're in charge of the Red Sign team lead generation. What do you do to generate the most of your leads? What do you find is most successful?
This is a great question.
Every open houses, online marketing, SOI calls and stuff like that. And I have like lukewarm leads in each category that's not super profitable. So I'm trying to figure out which direction I want to like focus my attention, like specialize in.
Yeah, where to invest. So this is not an easy, like for me, it's Google PPC campaigns. Has a high ROI, but that is a very complex system that like most agents don't know how to figure out to do. And you can't compete with large teams. When you have teams spending $20,000, $30,000 a month, you just can't compete in that avenue. So Google PPC is number one, because people are actively searching for home buy or like homes for sale in Cottonwood Heights, and then you're capturing those leads. So they're called active buyers or sellers. But specifically for you guys being solo agents and new, I would say like your best avenue is like your SOI referrals, because that is free, doesn't cost you any money. And I like, people are like, real estate is a relationship game. It's nothing to do with like how salesy you can be or how great, like people only care about the relationship. Like people, you're not just getting a credit card and creating a transaction, right? Like it's a long-term game of nurturing a relationship. And so if people know, like, and trust you, and you did a good job with them, and they're going to refer their friends and families. But you have to have that intentionality of asking for referrals. So I think a lot of times we do our SOI calls. For example, we just had a pumpkin patch. A lot of our agents were like, hey, come to our pumpkin patch. And then that was it. But it's like, I call it the value ask. So every time you're having a SOI or whatever SOI call, give them value. You never want to be like, hey, I'm just checking in. Like, how are you doing? Like, oh, by the way, like, have you seen what's happening in the market? That adds no value to my life. Like, I'm going to be annoyed that you made that phone call. But if you say, hey, I had this builder that's offering a 3.99% rate and 20,000 down for a down payment, like, who do you know that can take advantage of this awesome incentive? That adds value to me. Now I'm subconsciously thinking of referrals of like, who do I know? Actually, like, wait, that sounds like a great deal, right? And so I think referrals is your best avenue. Open houses, we're just in a very different market than we were in 2021. In 2021, I would tell you like open houses is going to be your best source. You just don't have people going to a bunch of open houses nowadays. So the likelihood of you getting a return is very small. And then social media is great because it can be free. So it's just brand awareness. But I like to tell people like social media is like a great like brand reminder. Like you don't want to just bombard people with real estate content, but it's a good just like subtle reminder. So those are kind of like the top ones, I would say. Yeah. Huh? Oh, you're fine. If you think of it, just raise your hand or stop me. Like,
So, building my network.
Yep.
Okay, so, I like to talk to people.
Uh-huh.
So I like to meet people like at schools, sporting events, things like that.
mhm.
I'm meeting these people and I'm getting some of their contact information. And
Yeah.
by the way, I wanted to mention, thank you for mentioning the relationship.
Yeah.
Because when I was building, actually,
Yeah.
it was, I had to mentally discern the difference between customer and client.
Yes,
This is a transaction, this is a relationship.
1,000%.
And so I'm always trying to put people into this category.
Mhm.
However, putting them in this category, it's the opposite of, so yes, it's sales, but it's not sales.
Yeah. Yeah, no one likes that. Yeah.
I don't want to be too pushy. So you have these people in your network,
Mhm.
that you're building relationships with. Sometimes you know what's better for them than they do.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I have a friend
Uh-huh.
who's always talking about, oh, I don't have investments. I don't know how I'm going to
Yep.
retire. And, obviously I talk to her about investments, where investment
Yep.
in stock market in the past, but also real estate.
Yeah.
And they hear it, but they don't.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is where it's like you have to paint yourself or position yourself as a brand expert or like a wealth advisor, right? And so like I have a lot of friends too. I have friends that are making absurd amount of money and they're renting, and it like kills me inside because I'm like, I know you're making like you literally are driving $200,000 cars, but you're renting a house. So it just is like the most frustrating thing because I know what's best for their wealth long term is to buy homes, buy investment properties, not invest in depreciating assets, right? But people are stubborn, and sometimes all you can do is just come from a place of just like continuously positioning yourself as like showcasing like how your investments have brought wealth for you and your family and what they've done, like passive income, talking about like the difference between renting and owning for your net worth. And just I think just like making sure that your messaging is just comes from a place of like consistently showcasing success and investing in real estate. And as long as you've had that conversation, you can't really push it. You can't force people. And that's what I have to train my ISAs on, because I've had ISAs come from solar sales and they're like, oh, someone kind of is interested in buying. They got a like 300 credit score. They have no money saved up. Like us pushing an appointment or us trying to force them, it just doesn't make sense, right? And so people you can't make them discover that. You kind of have to just position yourself so that you're that resource for everything that it comes to real estate. And hopefully after seeing that consistently, you staying on top of them and emailing them and posting on social media and doing all these things, are like, oh wow, like actually there is like something important. But sometimes it's all about coming across at the right time in their lives. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So the other thought that crossed my mind is with people like that who want to buy, but kind of not really super motivated, not really pushing them.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking I'll set up the auto emails where some listings, maybe once or twice a month, kind of go out to them.
Yeah.
Maybe get them daydreaming.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, I can see myself now. Oh boy,
Yeah.
it'd be so nice to have a backyard.
For sure.
Do you think that's a little pushy?
I don't think so. We set up listing alerts for all of our clients, regardless if they're, and our script too is like, even for our renters, for market reports, it's like, just dream where you could live, right? Like just see your dream neighborhood, what that looks like. And just so you're aware of like the market and what's happening and where prices are at. So as long as you're strategic about your script and you're setting that expectation prior, they're going to understand, oh, he's just keeping me updated on what's happening in the market. So if that time ever does come, like I have that opportunity. I think also inviting them to like wealth classes, like Johnny Christensen, who's the regional director, he does a ton of wealth classes for real estate investing. Make sure like you invite your clients to those, right? And just have them just constantly like, hey, I know like you've said you've thought about it, but you just don't understand. Because like when I first moved here, I was renting, I didn't understand. And now I'm like in real estate and I'm like buying as much properties as I can because I understand it. And then my friends who aren't in it, it's just scary, right? And so I think we just have to emphasize for those people's emotions and understand that like they're just not in the day to day. So it's still like a big purchase and it's scary and they don't understand like the long-term benefits. So yeah, it is. I mean, it's a lot of money. Perfect. Okay. You love people, but at the same time, you haven't learned to love hunting them. What does this mean to you guys?
Generate.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. We're having a small class, so it's very intimate, and we're going to make it super like hands-on. Anything else that you guys have? You love people, but you don't love hunting them. I think for me, it's sometimes like I said in the beginning, like we don't have the intentionality sometimes with like our relationships, and it's naive for us to assume that like, excuse me, let me get some water. It's naive for us to assume that every single person in my life is going to use me as their realtor. We've had instances where people's own dads have used a different realtor because that realtor just assumed they had the business without actually proactively working it, right? And so that's where I think just understanding that it's always a hunt. Yeah. And it was so frustrating when that person's dad was like, sorry, but like you haven't reached out to me. You haven't contacted this one random realtor who's called me every quarter for the last 2 years. So I'm using them. And so I think that was just like a very telling sign that like we just always have to be working our database and working our people and adding to it. Because as the market has shifted, and now instead of having like a 10% conversion on our database, we're at like a 5%, which means we have to add like double the amount of people to do the exact same business we did previously. Okay, so your number one job as a realtor is to find ways to get in the paths of motivated buyers and sellers. So this is where I also see a lot of real estate agents go wrong, is they just don't understand the system of 2 M's. So you have your message and then you have your method. So we're just going to briefly go into these so you guys can understand that. So you're putting out content and information that's capitalizing on getting people to engage with you and then also add them to your database. So your message, it needs to match your market, right? The market that we're in here is very different than the market in Oklahoma, right? Like our average price point is way different. For example, we have an Arkansas buyer, someone who's coming from Arkansas. And so in Arkansas, you just negotiate price. So if you have a house listed at 500, it's not like crazy to put in an offer for like 350 and then hope the seller, like that's just how their market is. It's very different. But then now she's coming to Utah and on a $1.5 million home, she's trying to offer $1 million. Like that doesn't work. Like we're in a very different market than Arkansas. You offer listing price, and that's just kind of where we're at. There's not a whole room for negotiation. And so making sure that you understand the dynamics of Utah market is super important. And then MOFR, does anyone know what MOFR stands for? Nope. Okay. make offer for immediate response. So this is like marketing gold, right? Like everything that I do, it needs to have a call to action. Like I want people to see something that like elicits a response from them. Like the whole goal in real estate is to get people to engage with me so I can learn where they're at in the sales funnel and then I can plan accordingly, right? So make offer for immediate response. And then obviously that in terms gets your people to respond. And then you have your target audience and your market conditions. As newer agents, you don't really know what like your demographic is, right? Like, is it first time home buyers? Is it luxury clientele? Is it new construction? You're figuring that out. And it's okay to be like everything for everyone at this point in your career. But I would just recommend like you kind of find your niches. Like we have some people that heavily focus on investors and like that's all they do is investors. And that's great. And so I think you find your foundation of like what works with you. And then you slowly build on that and add people. But you can't be a luxury agent and a first-time home buyer and have all the information. Can you do the business? Yes, but what message are you presenting? Are you presenting that you're a first-time home buyer person, or are you presenting that you're a luxury? Because those messages are vastly different. Any questions about like the actual message of what you're putting out? Nope. So really, I think just making sure like for social media, like an example, you see a lot of agents post like just listed graphics. Okay. Is that, if you post a just listed graphic, is that like enticing any clients, potential clients to like click on that? Like there's no call to action. Like it's great, it's a house. If by some reason it fits the parameters of a home that I'm looking for, I might click on it, but really there's like no specific call to action. Whereas if I post this listing and I say, hey, we're offering seller financing, 3% interest rate, who do you know that could take advantage? People are more likely to click on that. So I think it's just being creative and strategic about the messaging you're putting out there to make sure that everything you do, even if it's a newsletter, just like, hey, events happening in Utah, like that could be pertinent to everyone in your database, regardless if they're looking to transact. So like for Red Sign's newsletter, like it's really like 90% non-real estate content and then 10% real estate content. So just making sure you find those balances, because at the end of the day, understanding that your whole database isn't looking to transact now. And so they need to know you and different things and add value like we talked about. So no questions about messaging. Great. Okay, and so the method, this is also very important. So this is how you deliver that message. So it's important that you prospect and market. So we'll go into detail later what the differences between prospecting and marketing. And then you time block, and then you prepare, take action, maintain. So it's just all about how are you getting out there that I'm a real estate agent? Like, what are you doing? Are you calling your people, your 200 people quarterly? Are you posting on social media? Are you sending newsletters? Are you like involved in community events or like joining your local council? What does that look like? And so time blocking, understanding you can't do everything. So what is that? Finding the value. Like BNI groups is a great example. It's a business where people like meet with other vendors and it's like, hey, I'll give you business if you give me business. That's an awesome opportunity for agents, but that takes time. And so that's your method of delivery. And so just figuring out like your niche and what works for you. Okay, leads are everywhere. Approach, connect, and ask. I think sometimes like as agents, like you're on the airplane and you see someone in front of you like scrolling Zillow, like are you going to approach them and be like, hey, you're looking at a house, and like they're a lead, they're a valid lead. And I think everyone's different. I don't know if you guys know Clay on our team, like he will approach anyone with no like remorse, like has no reservations about being like salesy and knowing like, hey, I'm a real estate agent. He shouts it from the rooftop, which is great. And I think that's where it's just finding that balance of like who you are as a person and knowing, okay, am I going to be super proactive and just every person I meet and learn, get to connect with, am I asking them about real estate? Like those are your most successful agents, right? Because they're just not afraid. Like this is who I am. This is what I do. And yeah, people are going to be upset because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're always trying to sell real estate. It's like, no, I'm trying to help people. And I think that's where like people who are successful as real estate agents, it's because their messaging is like, I'm really not just trying to make money. I'm here because I understand how you create legacy wealth for families by investing in real estate, right? And so people who say that messaging, and that's why like some of our top agents at this brokerage, it's because they really only care about like helping families create wealth. And then that's the messaging that their clients are telling their friends and their families. And all of a sudden you get repeat and referral business because they're connecting at a much deeper level than like, oh, I know you just want to talk to me because I can tell that like you're just interested in selling my house when that time does come. So that's why relationships, connections are important. And then consistency. We'll go about like the average time it takes for someone to move and talk about like how it for you guys to nurture and follow up with relationships. So any ahas so far from what we've talked about? Comments, concerns, questions?
I love how you reiterated Clay's approach to everyone. That's probably my biggest struggle.
Yeah.
Is approaching people.
Yeah.
And like I was just saying on our Ignite call today this morning, that I don't usually open my mouth and just start talking to random people, but I did on my Timpanogos hike this weekend. I got a lead from that. Like I was already talking with Jake from Aries.
Amazing.
First time home buyer and his girlfriend I met. I was kind of micro focused on the hike going up because I was trying to PR, and on the way down I'm like, talking to people.
Random people, yeah.
Just happened to be the couple I gave a ride to up to the top.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just I'm trying to get over myself, and I'm sure we all are.
Oh, we're our own worst enemies. Yeah.
So there's like a fine line between that.
100%.
And I just didn't even I wasn't even trying to sell them. He
Yeah.
just was like, tell me more. And I'm doing this business thing and I'm going to be buying a home in the next 6 months. So it was more like trying to get information from me. I just happened to open my mouth and be friendly.
Yeah.
And then they asked me what I did for a living. So I was just like, wow, that was just kind of easy.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I feel like it's on the precipice of like real estate is relationship games, right? So like you going out there and like saying hi, even though you had zero intentions of talking about real estate, but you just inevitably people ask, what do you do for a living? Like that's just a natural flow of conversation when people meet. And so it's like, oh, I'm in real estate. Oh, and then that will happen if they're looking to buy or sell, then they're going to ask a lot of questions and they're going to be intrigued. If not, like it's still just one more person you're adding. I feel like the most important thing, what you said was like, it's coming from a place of like genuine authenticity. If people can, especially in Utah, like we live in such a sales place, like oriented state that it's like people see through the sales crap. Like I can tell when you're just being a sales bro and trying to sell me on something, like we just see through that, and like transparency is key. And so I feel like people, if they know like Sarah like really just cares about me and my girlfriend finding our first home, and like I can tell she's not pushy, and people are going to trust that, and that's where relationships are formed. And so I think as long as you like, as again like Clay, I think he's such a great example because he's just such a genuine person that we've turned down more clients because it did not make sense for them to sell their homes financially. They're in so much better spots because they kept their home as rentals, right? But if he would have been like, oh, this is why this is right for you to do this, and I'm not going to push to sell because even though that financially benefits me, and then they go and buy 5 more investment properties because they had that trust built. So that's where I think as long as you're genuine and you just let relationships form naturally, connect with people, and then it's like, oh, now these people are following me on Instagram and Facebook, and then every once in a while I'm posting real estate content, and then it's like those conversations come naturally, right? So I think as long as you're not just like, oh, hi, I'm Sarah, I'm a real estate agent. People don't want that, right? But as long as you just start and get to know people, then they're like, oh, like you weren't pushy, so I'm going to ask questions, right? So awesome. That's great. Yeah. Putting yourself out there. It's hard. And I think that's why so many people fail as real estate agents, is because they just are like, that's just not their personality. It's just to like really put themselves in every person you go, every event you go to, every party, family gathering. Like, are you having that intentionality of like meeting new people and adding them to your database, and like even just having natural conversations? So that's the whole game of being a real estate agent, just meeting connections, right? Any other ahas? Nope. Great. Okay, prospecting versus marketing. Does anyone know the difference between the two?
Prospecting is more active, right? You just kind of door knocking or
Yeah.
talking to people face to face. Marketing is more passive.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it for sure. Yeah, I think prospecting, in my opinion, is just someone, yeah, that's like actively making calls. If you have a list of like FSBOs or expireds, like you're actively like, I'm not marketing myself to these people, but I'm prospecting potential leads, right? So I'm going through, I'm door knocking neighborhoods, I'm doing this. Whereas like marketing is like you're putting out material or content or different things that are hoping to create those leads that you can then go prospect, right? So lead generation is a contact sport with simple rules. It means making contact with people through prospecting and marketing. So I love that Gary Keller, he's always like, it is a contact sport. Because if you are not contacting these people 52 times in a year, then another real estate agent is, and that agent's going to get their business. Like I said, their own dad. So making sure you're strategic about the content, because if you're just giving them crap every time you reach out to them, then they're not finding value in their relationship with you. But making sure that you're strategic about it. So this is where I think is a fun little graph. So a person on average moves every 7 to 10 years. So for example, we have like these different dots with different leads on their like timeline graph. So are you reaching out to people when they're at the top, at the bottom of the pendulum? Or are you reaching out when they're at the top? Like, what would you say, like, when are you reaching out to people or connecting with people where they fall in this graph? Yeah, that's unfortunately how it works a lot of times. But the answer is all the time. Regardless of where they're at, you're going to have clients that you literally call 4 times a year for 10 years until they're like, oh, the last kid got out of college, like we're downsizing, or oh, we had a baby, we're upsizing, right? So I think that's important to know. Like sometimes agents neglect the people who just are on their way down because they're like, oh, they just moved. What's the point? They're not going to move anytime soon. And so people see through that. People were like, okay, well, you found out I just moved and now you've like lost contact with me. And then randomly 7 years from now, you're reaching out to me. So that's where I think you guys understanding it's a long-term game, right? It's just constantly being in contact with people regardless of where they're at in their timeline. Because things happen. Like we've had so many clients that literally moved earlier this year and we call them quarterly. Like one of them, we've been calling her, inviting her to her events. She just moved and then we randomly called her for a pumpkin patch event and she's like, oh, I'm getting divorced. And we're like, nothing that we would have thought like she would have ever moved because she literally just moved like 5 months ago. So it does work. And that's where I think consistency is so important because life circumstances change, life is ever evolving. And so making sure you're consistent about reaching people. So, and then I think it's important that you guys have mental notes of this when you're calling through leads of like where they fall on this graph. Because if you're calling someone and then you can kind of segment, if you really want to be strategic, you can segment your database based off of like different tags. So you know if someone's moved recently or not recently. And so then obviously your messaging that you send to those people is going to be vastly different than someone who hasn't. So I think just making sure that you guys are cognizant of where someone falls on the graph is important. Any questions about this? No, great. Okay, so like you said, prospecting. So here are some examples of prospecting is phone or face-to-face. So FSBOs, so a great source, free source of lead generation is you guys literally going on KSL and searching for sale by owners. There's millions of them. I mean, that's an exaggeration. Obviously, we know how many listings there are, but there's a lot of listing. We have gotten so many listing appointments from KSL for sale by owners. And you have to be strategic because there's a lot of other agents calling these people and they are choosing to list without an agent for a reason. So if you want our specific FSBO script, let me know, email me, and I will send that because we found success with the new script that we've implemented versus just like, hi, I'm an agent. Like, do you want to use me? And they're like, no, screw off. Like I didn't use an agent for a reason. So making sure you guys are strategic about your scripting with FSBOs is important, but that's a gold mine of free people that you can just add to your database. Yes, it's Kaytin, Kaytin at redsign.com. Kaytin at redsign.com.
I wanted to say, the FSBOs work.
Yeah.
Mine was a FSBO, my closing was a FSBO. Amy, it's a newer like me. Hers is a FSBO, and now she's closing on in like this week.
Yep.
And then there's another girl, Priscilla. We're all new.
New.
And hers is a FSBO
Yeah.
too.
No, it's 100%. It is like, people just don't understand. In 2021, anyone could list their house for sale by owner and you would sell your house for 100,000 over asking because that was the market we were in. You didn't need agents. That was the reality. You really didn't need agents. Now selling your home is very different and people aren't understanding that the market has shifted because if they listed originally in 2021 and now they're trying to do that, it's just about education. So it's like, as long as you come from a place of like, I'm not trying to sell, but by the way, like we have a lot of scripts that we use too, where it's like, we have a database of 70,000 people who are interested in moving into Utah. I'm not trying to list your house, but I'm just trying to like maybe see if any of my buyers potentially could be a buyer for your house. Like you're offering a buyer's commission. So it's coming from a place of value and just adding that and just saying, hey, let me help. Or if any questions you have or you have, whatever, FSBOs are great. You just have to, sometimes people are stubborn and hard-headed and you just have to stay on top of them because if you contact them as soon as they listed their house, they're going to be way more reserved and cut off. But if you keep contacting them and then it's like 6 months later and they're like, oh yeah, like thank you for staying in contact. Like I actually really need to sell my house. So that's, yeah, no, FSBOs are a top source and it's free. So, and expired listings, like you guys can get with title companies or you can skip trace this data, but you can literally find all expired listings and you can call and say, hey, like you guys obviously took your home off the market. Was it because of the agent? Is there a reason for that? Like, can I help list it? Because you'd be shocked by how many people, like there's a lot of bad agents out there. Like that's something that like being a part of Keller Williams Westfield, like we're surrounded by awesome agents who like do a great seller job. And so we just forget that there's a lot of part-time agents who literally got licensed and like haven't spent any time in real estate. And so then they're like taking photos with their phone of the home. It's like a $2 million home and it's like iPhone photos. And it just, people have bad experiences with agents. So coming and showcasing your value of what you can do, like that's a great one. So neighborhoods, circle prospecting, recently sold listings, listed properties, community outreach. That's a great one. Just getting involved in your communities, obviously, doing charity work and volunteer work. Key relationships, corporations, builders, banks, third-party data companies, investors, teaching and speaking opportunities, meals, door-to-door canvassing, networking events, booths and kiosks, and walk-ins. So any questions about prospecting?
You have a method of getting phone numbers from expired listings? It's really difficult.
Yeah.
You can get contact information like a phone number.
Yep. Yeah. County records have all that. Yeah. 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 No, just like if it's like Utah County, so say for the homes in Orem, then I can go pull up Utah County records and then I can pull that listing and then it'll have contact information. Then if it is an LLC, so yeah, yeah, so you'll just see who it is. And then sometimes if it's like an LLC or if it's, so then you'll have to search on like the business entity, or if they don't have like their information, then you'll have to skip trace, but you'll have their name. So different counties offer different, but for the most part, like Utah and Salt Lake County, you can get their phone number and a name. Yeah. Yeah, because that's a great one. And that's just a great way to just say like, also just like, hey, like is there anything that you would have liked to see different from an agent? Like I'm new and I'm actively like prospecting to try and get new clients. And so that's a great opportunity. Yep.
Yeah, I was talking to her.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, because
yeah.
we did like a farming, we
Yeah.
went and farmed certain neighborhoods, and then they were able to extract like the ones that were most likely to move, because we farmed my neighborhood actually, and saw the people who were living there at least 5 years, and the guy who came down from, I think, he's part of the company that from Salt Lake. He's like, these are the ones you're gonna wanna reach out to, and he was able to give me their email and I think phone numbers too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, so the title, they can,
I think so. So, yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's
really
pretty
good deal
cheap.
for a big phone.
and so they'll run like data analysis on like turnover rates. So that's what title does. So that's what she's saying, essentially like where your highest turnover rates are. And so you can target those communities. And then there's also like free services that you can skip trace too.
It's kind of a random question, but
Yeah.
it has to do with investment properties. Do you have, like, does the red team or does Keller Williams have a investment calculator, like an Excel sheet calculator that we can use?
I don't know about the office. We have a investment like pro forma analysis, like a very in-depth spreadsheet that we use for our clients. But I don't know, like that could be something that maybe we could sit down and like we could run a performance analysis on it, because it's like we spend a lot of time on building that, and we also have a seller financing one. So yeah.
I was trying to build my own.
Yeah, no, that's something we could definitely talk about, like start sharing with you.
I was trying to figure out what is have a return, what is
Yep.
It's like, hey, I talked to some other guys, they're like, yeah, I get a lot of stuff from y'all. So I was like, all right, so I did the campaign for a year.
Yeah.
Contract. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah.
He did it once. Let's get it.
Let's keep doing it. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's honestly like, I think why like Red Sign team, like our mission statement is investing in real estate, right? Like Johnny Christensen is like one of the smartest mathematical financial people I know. And so he and Clay, who does real estate all the time, built this spreadsheet because it is like you have to have a performance analysis on every prop. We work with 50% of our clients are investors, right? So that's where it is. And then you have a lot of apps out there that they don't understand specific markets, and then all the different, like some of them just neglect certain, like the tax reductions and cost seg and like all these other opportunities that apps just aren't cognizant or aware of. So, okay, marketing, offline advertising, radio. So this is again, like what we talked about, like this is where you're going to spend money for you guys. I wouldn't start here, like prospecting, and we'll go into this, but I feel like marketing is a great, like, these are your cherries on top. Like once I have a successful foundation and I'm like building business and prospecting, that's great. Marketing is going to be all the cherry on top and stuff. But sometimes agents neglect the first part, and then they're doing all this marketing stuff. And then they're like, oh, why am I not succeeding? But you're spending a lot of money. And then that's how agents get out of it. Because if you're not making money and you're spending money, it's really easy for you to be like, this is not for me. So radio, TV, newspapers, yellow pages, grocery carts. It's all like old school advertising. We don't do any of that. Online, like I said, pay-per-click advertising, Google PPC, that is our #1 lead source. SEO is so important. Social media, portals, and then broadcast content creation, social media blogs, TV show, radio segments, direct mail, postcard campaigns, special event cards just sold, quarterly market updates. So this is a great one if you are like farming, is a little bit of prospecting and marketing, because farming, you're going door to door, you're introducing yourself. The marketing side is you doing direct mail campaigns of just listed or market updates or so. So they're kind of cohesive. So farming is essentially you have a geographical area. So like what Sarah was saying, like you can title will run and say like this, like vineyard has a very, very high turnover rate. Why do you guys think that is? Yes. Yeah. So they're all like condos and townhomes, right? And so your turnover rate is like drastically higher than like Alpine when you have like $3 million. No, people aren't moving in and out of Alpine as much as they're moving in and out of Vineyard. So Vineyard's like a huge target for a lot of real estates, their farms. So they create like this geographical boundary where they door knock. And so you can start small. You can literally start with like your own apartment building or like apartment building nearby and just start there, and then add another one, and then add another one. And essentially you're door knocking and introducing yourself and saying, I'm a real estate agent. Like, do you have an agent? How are you renting? Do you own? Are you guys thinking about moving, upgrading, whatever? And then you're sending mail campaigns too, just like you guys probably get mailers wherever you live of random real estate. It's like the top things to do to your house to improve the value, or like, did you know we just sold a home next door for like 20,000 more? Like there's just different things that you can do. So that is farming. So it's an easy way for newer agents because it really is just like manual labor. Like it's like you don't have to spend money. You literally can just go start door knocking a bunch of houses. So it's an easy way to get leads and get yourself out there without like going and spending $1 million, right? So great question. Promotional items and swag, public relations, and sponsorships. So like we talked about in the beginning, like Red Sign specifically, like SEO, like I think it's important of knowing like where buyers and sellers are finding their agent. 92% of people are finding it online. So that's where we choose to spend our time because we want to capitalize on the 92%. If you like don't have those resources and access, and it's like, okay, then what are you doing to make sure you're capitalizing on the 8% of people who aren't finding it online? So like we talked about, farming is both because you're like canvassing, right? You're door knocking, you're sending out campaigns. A lot of like our most successful agents with their farm areas, they always do the place that they live. Because if you guys like are choosing to do a farm area that's like 45 minutes away from you, you're just not going to go there as frequently as you would like, right? Whereas if you live, you can get involved. If it's getting involved in your church, in your ward, if it's having like local events, like it's like, hey, it's 90 degrees outside in October, let's have a snow cone like machine, and I'm going to pay for snow cones for an hour for my neighborhood, right? So it's just easy ways for you to get out there without having to like go canvas in an area that you're not involved with regularly. So especially in Utah with like just all the community focused events that they have, that's great. I would suggest that you start where you live unless you live in a place that doesn't have a high turnover rate.
Do you strategize, because you mentioned before that you would go to an apartment building, is that part of like you're trying to transition from people who are like apartments to townhomes to houses, houses to flexes, that kind of thing?
Because if you think about it, like everyone that lives in an apartment complex is renting, right? So they're going to be their first time home buyers eventually, right? No one wants to rent for their whole life. So those are great ones because like you can look at like the average time span of a renter. And so they're just easy ones to get out, and they're often neglected because a lot of times people are like, I want listings, not buyers. So that's a good avenue. And then yeah, with condos, people aren't going to live in a condo. You know, you have so many young families in Utah that they move into condos as soon as they get married, but then they have multiple kids and it's just not reasonable to live there. So then they're upgrading constantly. So, and then they go to a townhome or a single family. But because of the purchase price, average purchase price in Utah for a single family being so expensive, you just have more and more people that are transitioning, going to each like a condo and then a townhome and then a single family. So, yeah. Yeah.
You gotta go talk to a bunch of office first.
Yeah, I would always, yeah, it's just always smart to just talk to the office and just say, hey, is there any way I could pass out these flyers or put them in the mailboxes or door knock?
And wouldn't it be the same with some communities and their HOAs?
No solicitation. Like there might be some communities. I think there's like most of the times you're gonna get like a slap on the wrist and be like, don't do that. Like they're not gonna arrest you or do anything really. But I would just like be aware. So if you see like it says no solicitation, but you also can just say, you didn't know. It's not like you're violating any rules if it wasn't explicitly stated that this is a no solicitation HOA. So I would look it up and just try and see. But if you don't find anything, then you're more than fine. Maybe. I don't know.
Or something like that.
Huh.
License of
Okay.
some sort, yeah.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
perfect.
My neighborhood has this big rock, entrance that says the Cedars, and right below it says no soliciting.
Yeah.
And that never kicks out, which is fine. 'Cause
Yeah.
I appreciate the people who come in. We don't get like a ton of people because we're like on the very edge of the mountain, and
Yeah.
it's pretty populated in that area, but we don't get a ton of solicitors. But I've bought things from people that I felt were valuable. So it doesn't keep people away. I mean,
Yeah, I think you're gonna have some like Karens that are gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna report you. And like, that's very rare. Most people are gonna be like, either not home, they're like, thanks, but no thanks. And that's just kind of, I mean, like we're used to it, like Utah, door-to-door sales, solar, pest, like that's so common here. So I feel like people are accustomed to it. So you're really not gonna have any issues, I would assume. But if you get arrested, don't call me. I apologize. I told you wrong. Okay, networking, sphere, past clients, resources agents, and then referral networks, advertising networks, clientele. Any ahas so far from the information we've covered? Prospecting versus marketing and all the different lead generation things. Guys are a talkative bunch. Fine, we'll just keep going. I like it. We'll be quick. So referrals, this is what we talked about in the beginning. Your number one lead source, and I like run ROI calculations on every lead source. Like I know exactly every dollar I've made from every lead source that I've spent money on. Referrals have your highest conversions. Why do you think referrals have your highest conversions? They're free, yeah. So you don't have a negative cost associated with it. Yep. Did you-
Message you're trying to get across.
Mhm. For sure. And that is like, if you take the cost out of it, even without, if you're just looking straight conversions, it's highest because of that. Because people, if you have Zillow leads or internet leads, these people are getting called by 12 different agents. Me calling a Zillow lead that I've never met in person, I have no relationship with, there is zero loyalty for them to work with me, right? They're like, oh, I literally talked to someone else. I'm just trying to see this one house. I really don't care who I work with. There's no connection. There's no loyalty. There's no relationship, right? It takes a very long time for me to convert. That's why your average conversion for internet leads is 2 to 3%, which is so low. And you spend so much time and money on it. And it's just, that's not where the money is, right? So referrals, because of what you said, these people have had a relationship with you. And so people trust referrals from their friends and family. Like if my sister gave me a referral for some service, I'm going to trust that because I know my sister, I have a relationship and I know her standards of business expectations, right? And so that's someone that I would choose. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take that at a higher value than if some random person off the street door knocking told me like I should use them, right? So referrals are great. Yeah.
Advertise. I'll go to-
Yep. 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 Literally. And there's several businesses like Starbucks. They used to never advertise because people just went, right? And it's just because they built a brand that's so strong that it just has naturally. And that's how, like, I think of like Heather Groom and like Courtney and all these successful agents at this office. That's all they do is referrals because they built this pipeline over their 10, 15, 20 years of being in real estate of people who know, like, and trust them. And it's literally just like every month they just have like 5 or 10 people reach out, like, I'm ready to buy. No idea, but it's just all from their network, right? And so it just takes time. But once you start that, it's like so proactive, it's passive, right? People just reaching out to you. And so you don't have to do a lot of work. But yeah, you have to be careful about the relationships you do have and make sure you're giving them those good experiences. So when they want to give you referrals, they have a great thing to say about you. So like we talked about, the value ask. That's why in every phone call, you have the intentionality coming from a place of value, asking for a referral, and then rewarding that behavior. That's where I see a lot of agents go wrong is they get referrals. Like we've had agents that they get a referral. It's like a $3 million home. They're like, thanks to that person who gave them a referral. I'm like, you just made an absurd amount of money. The least you could do is like write a handwritten note. You don't need to send them a gift card every time, but like you have to, like, we all have been to the dentist. Like, have you guys ever referred someone to a dentist or a doctor and then they sent you like, thanks for the referral card, right? And so that's where I think you guys just being at least intentional about you creating that behavior and creating those habits. So you're just always writing a handwritten note, like, thank you so much for referring, whoever. And I appreciate you trusting me with like your close friends and family. So making sure you're rewarding that behavior because then it's going to become more and more consistent. Even if it's like a $10 Amazon gift card, that people like that and really like appreciate the time you spent to be appreciative. So another thing that we do in our buyer and listing packet is we have the 5-star experience. Like I said, like Google and SEO and reviews are so important. Like how many of you have bought something on Amazon? I was like, if you haven't, then yeah. So, oh, good to know. Perfect. So do you guys read reviews when you buy products or do you look at reviews? You don't? That's crazy. You do? Okay. That's why I'm like, I always like, if it's got 0 reviews or no reviews, I never buy it because it's just, there's so many stuff out there. And so people always look online, they look at reviews, they will look at different things. So we promise every client that we're going to deliver a 5-star experience. And if you read through our script, essentially it is like, at the end of this transaction, Sarah, if you don't refer me a friend or family member, then I'm going to assume that I did not give you a 5-star experience and I did not do my job in delivering what I promised you I would. You'd be shocked by how many people are like, oh, wow. Because then at the end of transactions, we've come and we've said like, hey, what did I do wrong for you not to refer your friends and family? And people are like, oh, sorry, like you were great. We just like, let me think. And then you just have to remind people. So having this and you're buying and listing. So then all of a sudden now at the beginning of a listing or beginning of a buy, the whole time, all they're thinking about is who am I going to refer to Sarah at the end of this? So then I don't have like no one to come up with. Because if you randomly call people and you're like, hey, who do you know that could buy or sell? People don't have that on the top of their mind. They don't just have, oh, I know this one person that I'm going to wait until Sarah calls me so I can tell her, right? So you just have to consistently be in front of them and asking for it. So as long as you set that expectation in the beginning of your listing or buyer comps, that's where you'll have great conversations. And that's where we've seen a significant increase in the amount of referrals we get. So, and people feel like they feel that pressure of like, we did something wrong as a business if we did not deliver that experience for you. And then when we ask for a review at the end, there's like, there's no question, them and their spouse or whoever's involved writes us a review because we set that expectation in the beginning. And I can send you guys our buyer and listing consultation too if you guys want to review it. Okay, agent to agent referrals. So this one's unique because, and this is like the Ignite prepared slideshow, you're not going to get a lot of referrals like from agents in this brokerage because we all service and do the same things. However, we always have like, we just got a listing in Vernal. None of our agents want to drive to Vernal. If some of new agents who have more time want to drive to Vernal for a 500,000 listing, that's listings that we've referred out to other agents in the brokerage, right? So there is a possibility, and that's where I think like you guys being involved in the WhatsApp and the Facebook group and different things and getting connected with different teams, because teams are the ones that are generating a lot of leads. And so it's like, hey, we've given so many leads that we were like, hey, our agents don't have the capacity to work this. It's outside of our scope. That's a great one. But really the most important, I feel like, is like agents to agents in other states. So making sure you're getting connected, you're going to family reunion, you're going to mega camp, you're doing different things to connect with other agents in other states because they're gonna refer you business because we all know people. Utah, we know California, Arizona, Nevada, all these people are moving to Utah because it's such a great state. So who are those agents in California that have clients moving that we can get connected with, right? So great opportunity for you guys to get more business. And so have you guys seen the referral network in Command? You're probably new. So you're like, do you know what Command is? No. Okay. So Command is Keller Williams like CRM. So essentially it's just a way for you to like manage your leads. So it's like a fancy version of a spreadsheet where you can go in and you can calculate and see all your leads. And so within Command, there's the referral network. Have any of you used it? I would recommend going and playing around with it and just sending a message. Like literally it can be like, we spend time and so our message is like, hey, this is Johnny Christensen. I'm the regional director of Utah. I just want to introduce myself. So if you ever have clients looking to move to Utah, we can service them at the highest level because of our connections. And so that's a message we send out to a bunch of agents in other states. And then they are all like, great. And then we've gotten several referrals out of it, right? And so just introducing yourself, saying who you are. If you ever have someone moving to Utah, I'll think of the same if I ever have someone moving to wherever they're located, right? So go to the referral network and literally just spend time messaging people, and you can copy and paste the exact same message. So, yes.
Down on the,
Yep.
it's a little,
Like
it's a little sign with a
circle.
person in it.
Yep.
And so we just go in there and it says one pending, mine always says one pending invites.
So that means someone's messaged you. Yeah.
From Las Vegas, Jason.
Hopefully he's not like, I have a buyer.
So how do we send that out? Do we go in and search for?
So you can
Keller Williams?
you can search by area, or you can also search by production, and then you can pull up agents and like you can move the map, and then you can save them to like your network, or you can search in the referrals. So that's just like a good one to know, like where people are coming from. As we know, like Arizona and California are the number 2 states that people moving to Utah and Texas. So I would just spend time like in those major cities going through and finding like the top agents.
I got lead, what was it, a lead, something through there, and I asked him, what is this? This really goes out, it's probably spam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I think you can tell based off of like the messaging of like so that's where like you guys building out your command profile with like a photo and a bio and all the information. So like it looks like a legit person, but there's probably like companies that are spending money and bots sending out messages to try and make connections. So, or they command sold information elsewhere. So I would say you can kind of just tell based off of the number and the messaging. But then understand any referrals you get, you're going to pay a 25% referral fee. So, but a great way just to get connected. Exactly. That's what it always blows my mind. People like, well, I don't want to work it because it's 20. I'm like, that's literally 5,000 more than you would have had. Make it make sense. So referrals are great. If you guys mega camp or family reunions in February in Vegas, is anyone planning on going to that? Sarah? No. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So family reunion is the one that happens every February. Essentially, Gary Keller, there's only like 5 places in the US that can hold this many people. It's like Orlando, Vegas Convention, Austin, and Anaheim, right? Like this. So these are places. And so essentially, Gary Keller, everyone in Keller Williams comes, and it's just like a week of just classes, right? Of just like and you should look at tickets because they're $7.99, but they will go up. I don't know when they do go up, if they've not already. But it's just like they'll have in the mornings, you'll have this session with Gary Keller where he literally just talks about like market data, what's happening in real estate, what he's seeing. Obviously, he's a very connected individual. So like the last family reunion, we talked a lot about the NAR lawsuit and all that things and how we transition as agents and what we need to do. Before that, it was like post-COVID, what you're doing and how the market's shifting. And so he just really gives great messaging from like the most brilliant minds in real estate and how you guys can implement that in your business. And they have a million classes that you can go to. Like one was like, it was like they get all the top agents. So one agent is a new agent. He literally had been licensed a year, but he closed like 75 deals because all he did was post new construction on social media. So he taught a class on like how you capitalize on new construction and social media. So there's just like a bunch of like top agents classes from like solo agents, new agents, to like teams. Like there's a ton of classes for someone like me to go to. So it's just a great way. And it's in Vegas, so you guys can save money by driving. And we all know Vegas has cheap hotels and it's not super expensive compared to like Anaheim or Orlando. So that's in February. And the mega camp is probably not relevant to where you guys are at in your business, but that's just another like more in depth, like for teams, like family reunion style. So it's a little smaller, a little more intimate. But no, none of them are. And yeah, none of them are. But honestly, some of the best things that I've learned and implemented in our business has been from family reunion because you could get the top minds. You don't need to recreate the wheel. There's been people where you guys have been at in your business and they've either succeeded or failed and they know what to tell you in order for you to get where you want to go. So it's just a great way to expedite your business, right? Yeah, go into Keller Williams website and just type in family reunion 2025 and they'll have the tickets. And then they have like hotel blocks. I don't know if that's full already, but like we got like the Mandalay Bay for like $200 a night, which is like super cheap. So Mandalay Bay Convention Center, yeah.
Oh, it's like a hotel's
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which is also big. Yeah, no, it's you're literally surrounded by like hundreds of thousands of agents. It's kind of crazy. Okay, business to business referrals, BNI groups. So this is something that like I heavily recommend you guys getting involved with because we all know people who are part of other businesses, and referrals from other businesses are like top notch, right? So if you can connect, if you have friends that are landscapers or hairdressers or dentists, and you guys just have a conversation of like, hey, I'm in real estate. Whenever you have someone that's looking, or would you just put my name out there if you ever have conversations around real estate with people? So it's just getting you connected. You can form like official BNI groups, but there's like all these like rules and regulations about how many referrals you have to get, and you have to go to like a meeting every week, and you have to do all these things. So to me, that's like a bunch of semantics that you really don't need. I think really it just you guys, introducing yourself to all the vendors and businesses you use on a regular basis and saying, hey, like, can I leave a couple flyers in your ice cream shop or your coffee shop? Hey, if you ever have questions or have clients that have questions about real estate, like, can I just pass on your information? And I promise to do the same anytime I have a friend looking for a dentist, right? So a great way for you guys to get connected. And then also like cross promotions. I've seen a lot of successful agents. Like one of our top agents, he is like heavily involved in Spanish Fork. Like he's part of like the council. I don't even know what it is, but essentially he goes to new businesses that come here and he's like, hey, I'm going to post you that we have like this new business coming to Spanish Fork. I'll tag you guys. We can do giveaways together. And then all I ask is that I'm getting your promotion, right? So now all of a sudden, all the people who are following this business are also seeing content coming from this real estate agent. So cross promotion is an awesome opportunity. And like I said, if 90% of your database isn't looking to do a transaction, you showcasing all the new things coming to Utah County is valuable to them because they'll go to the Cheesecake Factory, right? They'll see all these new businesses, and so they'll get excited about that. They're not going to get excited about random real estate data. So cross promotion, businesses, awesome opportunity. Any questions about that specifically?
How do you find Vienna?
Yeah, that's what I say. There's a website, and then I think just talking to other agents too. Like we've had a couple agents that are involved in them, and like so they can tell you their experience, and then they can tell you like successful ones. Because we've had agents that they've gotten to where they've got too much business, so they've had to pass off their seat in a BNI group because they can't take the capacity anymore. So I would just say connect. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say like the real estate seat is like the number one seat that's taken up in all BNI groups because everyone knows a realtor, right? We all, yeah, yeah. It's like inspectors, handyman. Yeah, it's great because it's like you get connected. But I would say if you can find one that needs a realtor, awesome opportunity. Yeah, yeah. A lot of are taken because, as we know, a lot of people are licensed. Okay, ahas, comments, questions, concerns.
Can you build your own network of
Yeah.
people, like a business network?
Yeah, so we had one of our agents built their own, and she's found a lot of success with it. You have to like go and get officially like do all the paperwork and all the things, and yeah, and then comply with all their regulations. But you can definitely build your own. And if I would recommend doing that, it's probably going to be easier to build your own than find one that doesn't have a realtor. So then you can get, especially like, title or lenders or all the people that you are already associated with, home warranty, right? Like you're already associated with these people daily, get them involved, and then they're going to know people, and then you can start small and then grow. For sure. Okay, we talked about geographic farming. Really the biggest thing is differentiation between hunting and farming. Farming is you don't plant seeds and overnight you wake up and you have a bunch of crop, right? Like it's hard for people to grasp around the fact that like farming takes years. I'm talking like 5 to 10 years for you to start to successfully see return from it. And so understanding like hunting lead sources are leads that you're like proactively, they're reaching out like, hey, I searched you on Google, we're connecting, right? Farming is, I'm just subtly putting my information out there once a quarter for 5 years. So then when that time does come, when you change on the graph and you're ready to move, you contact me. So I think it's important to have both, because if you're 100% in on Google PPC, if that somewhere to change or all of a sudden we have an oversaturation in the market or different potential outcomes, right, then that can negate our lead income. So that's where I think it's important to have differentiation and making sure that you have some long-term farming lead sources, right? Not necessarily just geographic farming, but there are different lead sources that take time. And then you have a good balance of both. So that's where because a lot of times I'll see agents, they'll go door knock one community like twice, and then they'll be like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, well, I could have told you that's a waste of 2 days of your time, because that's never going to lead to any business. But if you're consistent, you're being involved. Like, for example, our guy that farms like a community in Spanish Fork, every quarter he's putting out a flyer. And then like twice a year, he's doing some sort of event. So like this year, he did like a dumpster for like the fall leaves. And so he just we had a huge sign that said like Rich Cope Realtor sponsor, like free dumpster. And so he went and door knocked flyers, and then everyone used the dumpster, and everyone loved it and reached out and were so thankful. And then I've seen agents like during like hurricanes and stuff, it's like, here's like different relief or contacts, and or like one time I saw like at family reunion, a guy that became super successful. He was like he was living with his parents in like this bougie neighborhood, and essentially like the dumpster people were on strike. And so they had just bins of trash along their neighborhood that weren't being picked up because they were on strike. And so this guy, all he did was he just went and got paid for a private company to come and pick up the trash. He didn't post about it. He didn't say anything, but word of mouth, like random lady walking her dog saw that it was, so and so, and then that got out. And now every single person in that neighborhood said that they will only use this guy as their realtor because he did something like that. So even though there are these rich people that have connections and will use someone else, the value in you guys just showing up and not expecting something and doing the right thing and providing value to the community, things will come, right? So that's just a great story of the different things that I've seen, like helping with community pickup, helping with like your, local church or anything like that, it helps. So having that in mind that this is a long-term play. So for example, like geographic farming, some like content that you can do specifically. So like one that we do every time we get a listing, we'll target ads to that neighborhood, right? And then we'll send mailers of like a new listing coming soon. We'll sometimes do like client or like neighbor secluded open houses. So only like neighbors can come in because people are nosy. People want to look at their neighbor's house. People are curious. So that's a great way for us to meet the neighbors and invite them so they feel like, oh, I'm getting this exclusive invite to do this. And then afterwards, for example, we had a house in Salt Lake City that had like 32 offers and sold for like 100,000 over asking price. And so we sent that mailer out to everyone after and like, hey, if you're thinking about selling, like now's the time because here's a success story of this home that we just sold. And we had a lot of people reach out to us. So I think just having like strategic messaging in your farm can be important. So even just showcasing the homes that are for sale in that area, what their average days on market is, and all that is important. So having contact information about active listings, running targeted ads, like you guys can run social media ads, like Facebook ads, like I can target. Do you guys know how to target specific zip codes and areas and all that? Yeah. So on like Instagram specifically, yeah, you can put like you have to, if it's real estate related, you have to make sure that you disclose that because if not, Facebook and social and Instagram will not run ads if you don't disclose that it's real estate. But you can target specific zip codes, specific neighborhoods. You could do the whole state. Obviously, it's going to be oversaturated, but I would say that's a great opportunity anytime you have an open house. So every open house that we have, we run targeted ads. So then that way we're getting people that live in that area to see it. So it just helps get more eyes out on it, right? And then you're not me running an ad for a listing in St. George and people in Salt Lake seeing it is not very advantageous for me, right? So just being strategic about who's seeing your content. Yep. Yep. Yeah, you can like draw as small as you want on a lot of them. And then so Facebook's, I don't know, like I geek out about all this stuff, but so Facebook's new AI that it can run, like you can A/B test their ads and it's crazy how narrowed in and specific it can get. And then you can all of a sudden get into like retargeting and remarketing. So I would utilize Facebook's AI to write your ads and you're probably gonna have way more success with those than if you were to specifically do it. So I'd recommend looking at that because it's cheap.
That's the option that says A/B test.
Yep. Yeah. So A/B test, and then it's like I don't know what their AI is called, like it's Meta or something like. So I would just use it says like write by AI, and so I would use like run AI written rules for this ad. So I would just recommend that because Facebook is cheap. Like you literally your average CPL is like $1 to $2 cost per lead. So whereas Google, my average cost per lead is like $47. It's a lot more expensive. And then obviously not all those leads are actually converting. So it is a high cost. But Facebook, great way. They're going to get a lot of passive buyers, but it is a great way to grow your database.
So I understand the ads. I've had businesses in the past and I've used Facebook ads. It's totally different now with
Yeah.
AI. The way our technology is now. But would you recommend like using a static picture of you, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is what would be the best way to promote that ad? Would
It's
it be a picture of you or a picture of
the how.
my
So
skin,
that
you know?
that's where AI is great because it's essentially targeting user behavior. So it's saying, Sarah, as a user, and what you're clicking on Facebook ads, like you are more enticed to click on certain content based off of like every pattern and behavior. Like it's scary how much technology knows about us, right? So it's using that information to then put in the right ad. So that's where like before all this AI, I was manually A/B testing to see, and there's just again, it's so vast that you can't even get really narrowed in. But now because of their AI capabilities, it's getting every user's behaviors and patterns, and it's targeting specific content. So you can essentially you'll just input like 10 photos and different things, and you can do carousels or you can do individual images, and then you can do target based off of like users behavior. And so that's where I think it's important because you're going to have people who everyone's different, we all click on different things, and if I'm like not actively looking to buy or sell, maybe a class would be more enticing to me than an actual listing. So that's where I would say just play around with it. And also chat gpt, you guys aren't using this like every day of your lives, and I don't know how you're living, but I would say that's where I would just say like, hey, run me a like Facebook ad optimized to capture buyers in this demographic in this area. So that way I can sell my listing at XYZ. So like I would just like, then it will give you like 10 different ads, and then you can also run those and then put the AI into Facebook. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, the technology and the people you're getting in front of is vastly different than if you were to input it manually. So yeah, I would just ask chat GPT what you can do different. And you can even screenshot your ads and just say, hey, how can I optimize this? Or what do you suggest I do to make this more appealing and get more higher conversions? So that's what I would do because the AI is way smarter than me. So anything I suggest, like that's where you got to utilize technology because it knows everything. Okay. Events and seminars, like we said, neighborhood park cleanup. You guys can do like, obviously, if you don't have a ton of money allocated to like events right now as being new agents, there's cheap things that you can do. You can even, like we've seen like agents that literally it's like, hey, at XYZ, this is our local community park. We're going to go pick up trash. Or like, hey, I'm like going and taking, this was like the thing they said, like family front porch photos. If you just want to say, hey, I'll take your photo on my phone. I don't know how successful. If any of you do that and have success, let me know. But there are different events that you can do that don't cost you guys that much money. So I would just be strategic about that and just think it through different things that you could possibly do to get in front of people without going and spending $13 a person. And with that, like a free event you could do is a seminar. So I know like, cause you're teaching like a first time home buyer class. Yeah. We have a lot of our new agents that do that because it's such a great way to not only position yourself as a real estate expert, because if you can teach on a topic, then you're obviously very well versed and you understand the dynamics of that. So teaching is a great way for your sphere to realize like, oh, wow, like this person really knows what they're talking about when it comes to real estate. And then you obviously can educate, you're offering value, then your friends of friends are inviting people. And so you're growing your network and your database, right? So cost segregation. Do you guys know what that is? Essentially, it's just like a tax break. You can like write off your taxes based off of like your home in like the first year. So it's a secret of the rich. If you're like, how do rich people stay rich? It's cost seg. Like they're literally writing off all their taxes and then they're getting these tax breaks and they're investing that more. And it's like a loophole. I am not a tax accountant. I don't know all the dynamics. Have I cost segged one of my houses? Yes. But do I understand how it works to the full effect? No, because I'm not an accountant. But we have an accountant that we use as a team as an investment contact, right? And he came in and taught a class to our sphere. And it was like one of our highest attended classes because we have all these people who are looking to invest more in real estate and to grow their wealth, right? We didn't have to teach the class. We just coordinated the class coming, and then we facilitated the marketing to get to our people. So partnering with people, I think that's something like Carl and Todd do with like NILs. They partner with people to go teach classes and connect with people. And it's a great avenue, right? So I think you guys just knowing who's your network and who people, like what people find interesting and intriguing, and then utilizing them to help you teach classes, because we don't expect you as new agents to be experts on every topic with real estate. Okay, leads are everywhere. We kind of already know this, like everywhere you go, every person you meet is a lead, right? It's just a lead of, do they have another person that they're going to work with? or where are they at on the little pendulum that we showed. Just because they're at the bottom doesn't mean that they'll eventually transact. Okay, ahas.
Segue to it. The Red Sign team focuses on promoting investing with people. Is that really effective? Like even with first-time home buyers to be like prepping them for investing in property and things like that?
Yeah, so that's where like, and this like our niche of investments came because our two owners are heavily invested in real estate. Like that's all they're invested in. So it's like literally the second I joined the team, it was like, do you own? No. Okay. So now it's like, now I own 5 properties because it was like, okay, you got to buy, you got to buy. Like it's just such a mission and something that people push as part of the team. And so that's where we've just found like naturally, because Clay and Johnny started this team, their whole network were people that were in the same position in their lives and they saw Clay invest. And so then like that kind of has grown into what our database is now. And so we just have, it's just every messaging, everything that we do, I feel like it's just, we found success in it because an investor could buy 10 properties in 1 year. Your average person that is just buying one home to live in is going to buy one house every 7 to 10 years. So what's your ROI on someone who's buying 10 properties a year versus someone who's buying 1 property a year? So we have a ton, like we just had a guy from California who he's got 1031 exchange money that he's got to buy like 6 properties this year. He's got to be under contract on all of them by February. And he's looking at like $1 million homes in Park City. So in like Hawaii and all these crazy places. And you're like, okay, great. Like let's help you because your returns there. The hard part about investors, a lot of them are just looking for a good deal. You really don't have the capacity to find a good deal because no good deals are going to be on the MLS. It's all on like wholesale websites, different third-party things. And so you have to be connected that way. And so that's why we have like a whole investment division where we have like a wholesaling and a flipper. And so that's where we send deals to our investors that way. So we found success in that because us having investors that were just sending listing alerts on the MLS is not beneficial for them because they're already seeing that or they could already see that. But us having a division where we're literally sending wholesale properties that they can go and we're sending the pro forma analysis, meaning the RVP or whatever of this property. If you buy it today, this is what you could go do a couple changes and then remarket it. So we have, but I think it is like, that's just got to be like your messaging, right? So as long as that's like, I'm just about investing, like I love investing, you're going to find success in it. But if you personally don't believe in it, then I think it's going to be harder. So I think that's just why we have, because it's like, literally that's all we track is how many investment properties we're buying and different things. So investors are great to work with because it's also not emotional decisions. If you know, like we had the Arkansas lady, we literally showed her like 47 homes because this is going to be her forever home, whatever. And there's so many emotions behind it. Whereas an investor, it's like, here's your performance analysis. This is the home that's going to make you money. He's like, okay, here's the check. So it's just easier. They're easier transactions, in my opinion. Yep. Yeah. Because there's 4 quadrants when it comes to investing. Obviously, you have like your tax reductions, your cash flow, the debt reduction. So there's different quadrants. And so you just run those to understand, because right now doing a pro forma on a property, nothing's going to cash flow in Utah right now. If you go purchase that, with where interest rates are and where the purchase price is, really hard to find a cash flowing property. So showing them how this reduces your debt and the tax benefits it does have, all smart investors are going to understand that. And so they're going to know the long-term likelihood of interest rates dropping and then being able to cash flow. So depending on how much capital they're able to invest too, like there's just different things. So we have a lot of investors that are all cash. Obviously they're going to cash flow and they're going to have good returns on those. So I think it's just running the different scenarios for them so they can understand. So.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Of course.
I was just talking to Ken about this earlier. I have this guy, I'm not even sure how legit he is, that says he doesn't want to do earnest money deposit. Is that a Utah culture thing or is that a nationwide? Like, how he says he's never deposited earnest money.
Then I would say he's not a real investor.
Not real.
No, because unless he is like reaching out to like 20 different properties and just seeing which ones he can get, every legit investor understands that like earnest money is showcasing my commitment to that seller, right? And so you should always have earnest money, regardless of how small or minuscule, because you can put, regulations. So it's like you have 2 weeks, right? Whatever it is. So anyone that's not willing, in my opinion, they're not a real investor, because more than likely, if they're a cash investor, then they're okay with upfronting a little capital as long as you don't have short terms of when that goes hard.
That never
So-
happens.
No. Yeah, because even like, so we're like in Georgia, we own a lot of properties in Georgia, and it's very much the same thing where you're putting down earnest money because it's showing commitment, right? And so no one wants to spend time working with someone if they're not willing to put forth a little bit.
Would you say that to them? Be like, if you're not willing to put down earnest money, because it's gonna be really hard to make any offer go through.
Oh, 100%.
So how would you like translate that to the client?
Well, I think it like you have to come from a place of like, oh, I get like maybe I would ask where they're investing in, where they're not having to put down earnest money. And so say if he says like Oklahoma, I'd say great, like Oklahoma market is vastly different than the Utah market. And so right now, in order for us to show commitment to these sellers that you are a legit buyer or investor, we have to put forth money, right? And so I think we can talk through and we can negotiate how much you want to, and we can negotiate the terms on how long you have until that goes hard. But if you're not willing to put forth money, then people in Utah are just going to assume you're not a legit buyer because that's just not the culture and the dynamics we have in our current real estate market. So that's just how I would present it. Oh, thanks. That's where, yeah, that's where like working with our ISAs, that's what I do. So I'm not licensed, but I've been in real estate for 4 years. Yeah.
Good.
Dynamics. Yeah. Well, and that really is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the next thing.
But I think that's where I like see so many agents, right? We have 20 something agents on our team, and the ones that are successful are the ones that are not afraid to admit fault, right? I think that you see a lot of agents that are like, oh, I know this, like I know how to negotiate. Like they're just so stubborn and assuming that they know everything in real estate, and they don't want to showcase any weakness to their clients. So they just like go with the flow, or they kind of bull crap their way through like saying different things. You guys like literally say, hey, I don't know the answer to this question, but I have a broker who's done this for 30 years and he knows exactly what everything with real estate. I've got a lot of connections within my brokerage that I can go ask these questions. So that's what we have so many agents. I'm like, don't put your foot in your mouth, because that's why we have billion-dollar lawsuits, because agents are dumb and say dumb things. I'm like, lean on the fact that, hey, I might not know this. And that's how we've had agents join our team that were brand new and they look like they're 16. So people are not going to be like, let me have you list my $3 million home because you just got licensed. And I don't really like, I can tell you don't have experience. People want someone that's been in the business for a long time, but they've succeeded because they literally said, hey, I don't know anything, but I have this whole team behind me of like 100+ years of real estate experience combined, full marketing division, a full this, because they know different things. So any questions you have or any hesitations with anything that's not being met, let me know, and like I will facilitate and I will make sure I find the right answers for you. So I just think like leaning on different people too. And if your investor's like, well, you don't know, it's like, I have connections and I have resources to know everything. So there's literally not one person that you could talk to at this office that wouldn't help you guys. So I think just leaning on that's important. Yeah, I would be shocked. We got a lot of nice people, but there could be some mean people. Okay, so lead generation plan. So connect with your sphere, build and feed your database, capture leads from open houses. Lead generation is like 5% important. The 95% that's important is the lead nurture and the follow-up. The money is in the follow-up. I cannot emphasize this enough. You will not make money by getting leads and calling them one time and then not doing anything with them. You're going to make money by being systematic, getting leads, getting their informations, capturing it in a CRM, following up with them systematically 52 times a year. That is where you're going to make your money, right? So making sure that you're doing that with your own database. Even if they're not a lead, if they're a client, you should be reaching out. We call them touches, right? And so that's like they're sending newsletters, you're sending email drip campaigns, you're doing all those things. Because if you're not feeding your database consistently, you're not going to succeed as an agent. Execute a referral strategy. Choose a geographic area to door knock, and then consider events and seminars. So I think these are like, as a new agent, this is like an ideal plan, right? Just different things that you can do to make sure you're successful. These are kind of like the basics that I would recommend you start investing your time and resources into, because this is Gary Keller's playbook for new agents. Okay, any ahas? This is the Keller Williams slides, if you can't tell, because I normally don't do this many ahas. Yeah. Yeah, and that's perfect. That's how it should be.
I think the biggest thing I'm gonna take away is to add value, even like when you're making calls, to find some way to like, hey, I'm not just calling you for no reason, but I'm gonna give you some sort of value to it.
Yeah, because people like think about how many sales calls do we get on a regular basis? A lot. I have hung up on, I literally run an inside sales division and I've hung up on salespeople because I just am like, why are you calling me? I don't have time for this. Like, I'm busy. So it's like, oh my gosh. So if these people that I'm calling, like, where can I come from? And like, there's so much value you can add. Like, for example, like we own a home, Utah home and auto insurance. And so like right now they're like quoting, we've saved some of our clients, no kidding, like $800 to $1,000 a year on insurance, home insurance for something people just don't get. They don't quote often. They don't check often. They kind of do it once and then that's what they're at. Very rarely people will look at that every year, but people forget about it. And so we just called and we said, hey, we just saved a client $1,200 by them switching insurances because they bought a home. I know you're not buying a home because we found your forever home last year. Have you thought about just quoting out to see if you could get a better deal with home insurance? And they're like, oh, no, actually, like I would love to just see. And then they were able to save them money. And that just was such a value add. It doesn't really have anything to do with real estate, but it was something that they respect, right? And so I think interest rates, like builder incentives, that's such an easy one for you guys to be like, literally, they're offering 3.99%. Like, this is an amazing opportunity. Who do you know that I could get this in front of? Or just, I mean, there's a million different things. Like when flooding, whenever like last winter we had really bad, or 2 years ago, like the flooding, they had different flood zones in Utah. And it was like, hey, here's free resources where you can go get sandbags and different things. And we're just like we made flood care calls. Our clients loved that and ate that up because like, oh my gosh, like the fact that you care about like where I live and knowing that I live in this like flood zone and you called about it and you try to help with resources, those were great calls. So just making sure, value ask. As someone that runs our ISAs, those are the best conversations that they have because it literally is always the conversations where they just say, hey, I'm just calling, like, see if you were interested in buying a home. That just never works. Yeah. Well, they're awkward, like, and that's where I think like it's so awkward when you write down all 200 people in your life and you're like, oh, I haven't talked to this person since high school. And now I'm just randomly going to call them and be like, hey, by the way, I'm in real estate. Like, what do you know? And it like just coming from a place of value, it just makes the conversation flow smoother and they don't feel like they're being used for your gain, right? Okay. How has this thinking changed what ideas or mindsets were new for you guys? Like, is there anything that we went over today that's like changed your approach on how you're going to approach lead generation?
A lot of it for me is like balancing that line of being a salesperson and just being like a connectable, what is the personable person?
Yeah.
Like that's just creating relationships with the community. And I'm like always taking notes. It's like stop being a salesperson. Just look for what you can provide to people and like add value.
Yep.
Connect and just create a relation. Like my two favorite conversations that I've had in the last 2 weeks were people that I cold called, like old friends from high school that I reconnected with, went to lunch with.
Yep.
One of them is like he's a DJ that's going to a Halloween concert and he invited me to go with my fiance.
Yeah.
Another one just moved in with his fiance and he wants to go hang out with our dogs and stuff like that. Totally unrelated to real estate.
Yep.
But like I've gained huge value from those conversations. So that part is going to be my big focus.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, at the end of the day, all these systems, all these processes, none of it matters if you're not focused on the relationship because that's the foundation, right? That's where you guys are going to see success is just building those foundations and just coming from a place of caring about people and people will use you because solar sales, whatever, pest control, like you can come up to knock to someone's door, they can give you their information and they do this, but this is a psychological, emotional purchase that so many people have. And a lot of it, like right now, 80% of our clients are divorces because people who have a 3% interest rate aren't going to sell, right? Because it just would be silly. But we have a lot of divorces or deaths or different things. So that's where we're focusing on like understanding these are emotional times that people are going through and they don't want someone, even if I could tell them like this person is the smartest negotiator, literally like knows the contract in and out, they're going to pick the person that they trust and they can build a relationship with. That's going to like you guys are therapists is what I tell people. I'm like, if you hear some of the calls that we have, it's like you guys are literally licensed therapists that just help people make decisions and emotional decisions, right? And so I think understanding that and just knowing that like no matter what you do or do not know, at the end of the day, I'm going to choose you because I trust you and like understand that this is the largest purchase I'm ever going to make in my life. I want someone I can trust and is going to walk me through that and understand all the emotions that come with it. So that's super important. That's awesome. Anyone else? Awesome.
Didn't know about the referrals.
Yeah.
Man, I know that was cool. But then I found there was somebody who took the training.
Is that a good lead?
Yeah,
Oh, it is, really?
yeah, from Vegas. He's a KW agent.
Yeah.
How do you find? Do you just go into Command and you search for
That's great.
The agents, yeah.
the agent?
Yep. And so you can pull up like, and so it will have like their production metrics and all that fun stuff and all their contact information. You can add them to like your referral network.
I feel like you gave me a lot of really great ideas for like events and like dumpsters.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that because I lived in an HOA. I've lived in this new neighborhood in Cedar Hills for like 4 years, but before that, I raised my kids in this neighborhood over by the Novus Temple. It was an HOA, and our HOA would bring these dumpsters twice a year. One's for fall cleanup and one's for spring. And I'm like, oh yeah, my new HOA doesn't do that, and I could do that.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I think we spent like $1,200 and it was like, they bring it, they pick it up. And so that was like twice. Like, so they did it like Friday, then they removed it, everything, and then they brought it back like Saturday. And so it is pretty cheap and you can just market it like sponsored by Sarah and then like have your little realtor logo and let people know, do flyers, but it is a cheap and easy way to get your name out there. So that's awesome. Okay. Anything else? Models? We're going to skip the role play because I think that's silly. So daily, yeah, I like this. That's great. If you guys want to role play, do that on your own time because there is value in it, but sometimes sometimes it's just a waste of time. So daily success system. So this is what I would just recommend, like what you guys do. So 10 conversations a day. If you are hitting 10 conversations a day as a realtor, like you are going to have a successful business. So lead generation often gets neglected because as realtors, I see this all the time. They come in at 9:30, they check their email, and all of a sudden, like an offer is falling apart, or this contract, the inspection, the appraisal didn't happen, whatever. We get caught in all the craziness of contracts. And as a new agent, it's like if you can set your habits now, you're going to be so much more successful because once you start to get busier and busier, you're going to already have the habits in place to continuously be successful. So recommend protecting your lead generation time from like 9 to 11 every morning. All you do not open your email. All you do is make calls. You just have your list. If you guys, do you know what DTD2 is? Yeah, that's what I would just recommend. That's where you do your DTD2 calls. And if you have a database of 200 people, that's like average of like 15 to 20 people every week that you're calling. So from 9/11, you call those people on Monday, and then the next 4 days, you're outbound prospecting lead generation. So protect that time now in order to be successful in the long run, because a lot of agents don't spend enough time prospecting. And then all of a sudden, a year from now, when their business is cut in half, they wonder why. And I'm like, it's because you have to be consistent with it. 10 contacts added a day. That's where I think like you guys, again, it's just, how are you just constantly reaching out, meeting new people on hikes or going to the gym and meeting new people? Like, what are you doing to add contacts? Like if you can add 10 contacts, that's awesome. I think 10 contacts a day is a little absurd, but I would say 10 a week would be more. Yeah. Because I'm like, yeah, that's 50 contacts a week. That seems a lot. So I would say try to add 10 a week would be awesome. And then 10 handwritten notes. That also seems high. I think just knowing like in Command, you can put people's birthdays. So we have a system that we get notified 2 weeks before someone's birthday. So we can write them a handwritten note and say, hey client, I hope you're having a wonderful birthday. We're thinking of you. Happy birthday. So just utilizing the system so you can do handwritten notes. Even when you have a transaction close, like we will send out emails in letters, like on the 1-year anniversary. So just putting in tags and segmenting your database so you can filter and see, okay, it's their 1-year close. Here's a handwritten note, like happy 1 year of your home. Hope you guys have loved living here. So different handwritten notes, they go a long way. Again, it's the relational side. People don't really care about emails or texts. If they see that you took time to write a message, they're going to be appreciative of that. 1051 social media engagement. I teach a lot of social media classes, and this is where I see when I attend classes, I'm like flabbergasted that they just talk about content, and putting out the content. I'm like, if you guys don't understand the Instagram algorithm, the only people that are going to populate at the beginning of your feed are people you are interacting with and engaging with. If you wonder why your fiance or your best friend is always the first person you see their information, it's because you're sending them memes or you're messaging them and you're going back and forth. So you have to message people and interact with people and comment on people's things in order for them to see your stuff. Because if you're wondering why you're having views so low, it's because you're not interacting. So I see so many people that are like posting like hundreds of stories a day and they're obnoxious on it, but then no one ever sees their content and they're getting like 5 views. It's because they're not interacting with people. So I would say, like, I tell people, I'm like, hey, go follow 5 people a day, go comment on 5 posts a day, and go message 5 people. And it can be something as silly as just like, hey, I saw like this new restaurant came into town and I thought of you, or like, hey, like you just send people, just messaging people so they're seeing it and populate. Because one of our agents, he was posting on social media a ton. He just was like, I'm spending so much time curating and creating content and I'm seeing no return. And so I told him, I was like, okay, let's stop focusing on the content. Let's focus on the engagement. When he has had like 5 clients that he's closed with this year that came from social media that he didn't even know, that they just got encompassed in his network, just somehow found his page, they got added, he interacted with them, acted like they were best friends, and all of a sudden they're reaching out and using them. So that's where I'd recommend just constantly engaging with people on either Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever your chosen social media platform is. Any questions on that? Yeah, that's where I'm like, literally the number one thing you can do is in order for your content to populate on people's feed, because the algorithms dictate, so like messaging. So if I've never sent you a message on social media, then the likelihood of you populating on my feed is very low. So it's always going to be my top people. And then it's like based off comments. So if I've never commented on yours, then it's like the next, and then it's likes. So it's based off of those metrics. So that's why you can start to notice when you're like, oh, the same people. It's because you're interacting with them. Yeah. Yeah.
Creating content this year is, and I said this in one of our other classes, you go in and ChatGPT taught me this. It's like, go into social media before you make your post and just start being active, commenting, liking. And then after you post it, do the same thing for like 10 to 15 minutes. Just interact, ask questions to people, ask them, just questions about their stories. And it does make a difference.
Oh, 100%.
And then one thing I've learned in the past is when you can just randomly on Facebook ask questions to people that are like questions. Okay, there was this one time when I was wanting an off-roading vehicle. So I went on Facebook and I said, I really want your recommendation on your favorite off-roading vehicle. And everyone did. People were like Grand Cherokee, people were like Tacoma. So many people, and because of them, I got like 200 comments.
Yeah.
Which, like, I wasn't doing it for the algorithm. I was doing it because I really wanted a real
opinions. Yeah.
I got a really bad one.
Yeah.
Because of those people.
Yeah.
But now that I'm thinking about that, like the things I've done in the past could be used for real estate.
For sure.
And just asking questions to people on Facebook because everyone loves to share like their
opinion.
Yep.
Yeah,
if they love something, they'll share it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when people share it. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had never even thought about operating.
For sure. Yeah. And that's where I think like that's like the messaging of like the call to action is so important. And so one of the things, like even something as silly as like you're touring a home with a buyer, so you get there 5 minutes early, you post a quick video and you do a poll or you can either be like questions with the right answer. You're like, just ask people, guess how much this home is worth. Like closest one gets $5 Crumble gift card. You'd be shocked about the amount of people who like want to go, will like try and back search and find that house and do all these different things so they can get that $5 crumble. But it's just, that's just like a great one that we find a lot of success because people love to see cool houses, right? And then if you just ask, how much do you think this is worth? And then you can like, as soon as you get like more narrowed in on like specific real estate, people just disengage because if they're not interested in that topic, they're not going to really give their opinion. But I do think, yeah, even if it's being strategic about not just posting real estate polls or real estate questions, doing random life things like your favorite hike in Utah County or whatever, and getting people's opinions, people are going to interact with that. And so that's where you see like people who are involved in MLMs or different things. That's all they do on Facebook is just post questions and polls because they know that's successful, right? And the worst thing that you can do is post a video, post a reel, and then shut Instagram or Facebook because that literally Instagram's dictating that like you're not spending enough time in the app. So making sure that you're engaging. Yeah. Especially after, as soon as you post it, you should scroll through reels and go like and comment on videos. So then that way Instagram's like, okay, you're a good user. So therefore I'm going to boost your videos. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard, but yeah, that's where it pulls like literally the number one thing. Cause think about it. Like if I post a just listed house, no one's going to message me on Facebook or Instagram. But when we post like, hey, how much is this home worth? Or where do you think this home is located? You're going to get a lot of people messaging you. And now because they've messaged you, they're literally populated at the beginning. So they're seeing every single story and video you post. So that's a great example. So interactive content is way more important than just random content. And then I tell people it should be like an 80-20 rule with real estate and social media. 80% should be your life and you, and 20% should be real estate. Because I'm using you because I love you for who you are. And I like, great that you're real estate, want to support you. I'm going to need those little reminders. But 80% of it should be personal content. Because I see a lot of realtors that do 100% real estate and then they get a lot of unfollows or a lot of people who aren't using them because it's too much. No, not at all.
Somebody posted so much about real estate, I'm like, I can't even relate to that.
Oh, I have unfollowed real estate agents because I get annoyed. I'm like, I liked you because you're a cool person. Now all I see is real estate. And it just is a lot. It's not relatable. And if I'm not looking to transact, it's like, and it's great. Like I want to see successes. Like I think it's great when agents post like just sold or under contract. And those are great reminders, but you also, it's a balance and knowing that like if it's not related, clients aren't going to, there's no emotions connected to those posts for clients. And so making sure you have, but when I see, you with your kids, it's like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm interested in seeing. So just, we can't be egotistical and think that everyone cares about what we're doing. So that's my little social media tidbit. Biggest thing with lead generation that I have to cover is the do not call list. Dean really doesn't want you guys to get sued. And there's a lot of people who are sue happy and will like, if they're on the DNC list, they will try and sue you. So the biggest thing is if you are pulling lists, because if anyone gives me their contact information, so Red Sign, we do a lot of 90% of the leads we reach out to have come to us. They've inputted their information. So we have no legal, even if they're on the DNC list, legally we're in the right because they prompted and gave us their information. So we can't get in trouble. But if you're pulling FSBOs or you're pulling expired lists or you're farming, you have to cross-reference the DNC list because if you're calling them, you could get sued very easily. Usually the thing is, they're not going to sue you the first time, tell you not to call them. If you keep calling them, then that's where there's lawsuits and you'll actually get those pushed through. So just make sure you're cross-referencing that so you don't get sued. Okay, that is the class. We are 7 minutes. Any other questions? Anything about marketing, social media, lead gen, real estate? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I had a Facebook page. Whatever.
Yeah.
Right after MySpace died. So I decided it might not be a bad idea to kind of separate it personal to more of a business page. But I'm posting it anyway. So,
I am so against that. And let me tell you why.
well, because of what you just said.
Yeah.
You want one game.
Yeah.
Personal and business. But is there a way to also import like contact friends from one to another?
Not, to my knowledge, there's not an easy way to do it other than like pulling up the list and going through manually. A lot of the times too, I will like see people that transition, they either did two and they're transitioning back to one. They'll just post in the business group and say, hey, I'm moving everything to my personal page. Make sure you follow me here and get a link so it's easy for people to go click and then or add you as a friend here. Make sure you're seeing my stuff on my personal page. And then I would just say like for Facebook specifically, one segmentation that I would recommend is like starting Facebook groups. Like Facebook groups are so big and they're so great opportunities. So even if it's just like you starting like an investment Facebook group of like investment properties in Utah County that aren't on the MLS, great opportunity for you to connect with people. It's all business, it's all real estate, but then the people are still, the people who follow you and use you aren't going to just see your real estate stuff all the time, right? So I'd recommend looking into Facebook groups for sure as like for business specific purposes. And then that way you can tell your personal people, depending on whatever Facebook group you do, like if even if it's just like real estate tips, hey, go follow this if you want to just see all real estate things all the time. So I've just seen, we all know it. We don't follow the realtors who literally have just real estate specific pages because it gets boring. We don't want to just see them talk about real estate all the time.
Well, that's the thing. It's like
Yeah.
sitting down and watching TV. I don't want to sit down and watch porn.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fun. Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I think like finding what you're passionate about. Like, for example, one of our agents loves cooking. He cooks all the time. So he's like started this like cook club. So instead of book club, it's like he has dinners and he just posts about it on social media. It's all he really posts about. He doesn't talk about real estate. And then he has people come to these cook clubs that just randomly find him and he's gotten so many deals from it. But that's just like his niche. Like you love hiking, even if it's just like a girls hiking group, like inevitably that's going to lead to people talking about real estate because they're going to get to know you and understand you. But it's like, hey, here's the best hikes in Utah County. Like here I'm positioning myself as like a hiking expert in Utah. Now people are going to be interested in that. You're going to find networks of people that you wouldn't have had previously that then are going to learn that you're in real estate, and that fosters connections more. But I think oftentimes people just don't know their niche and what they really succeed in. And that's where there's opportunity because there's too many people out there. If you don't narrow it down, you're just never going to get the business right. So finding what you're good at, what you love. Like for example, we've got an agent got a lot of tattoos. He loves his tattoo parlor. He goes to a lot of conventions. That is his whole network. It's just a bunch of people that like have been connected. That his like tattoo guy now gives out every time anyone because you talk when you get a tattoo, it's like 8 hours. Like it's a long time. He mentions, oh, you're buying real estate. Oh, hey, like he gets so many referrals from it. And that's just from him connecting with him and supporting him and in referring his business. And now people are, right? So it's like it can be anything, right? So be creative as you want to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys for coming.